What's up? I'm just getting everything set back up. So, see me picking that beef jerky out of my teeth. Up. So, wait, give it a second, see how many people show up, and then we will get rolling. I'm pretty sure I got everything set up okay, but knowing me, I'll forget something. I'm on my old headphones. I'm trying to let my new ones charge for a minute. Let me see. No, my man Ron Wayne. All right. I'll get back to that in a second. So for the two of you guys that are here, I found one of the acts that I covered already that comes into play in this hearing. Well, now it's back down to one. I guess they don't love me anymore. So we'll see. We'll give it a minute, see who else shows up, and then we'll run it. Even if no one shows up, I'll be doing the show. What's up, Wayne? How's it going, brother? I just commented on your short. Dude, I've got to pick me up a couple of single actions. Whether it's a couple 22 single actions, or whether I pick up a 22 single action and then pick up a big boy single or a single action, I need to pick up a couple. I shoot my father-in-laws every chance I get, but I don't have any myself. All right, we got 3 in here now. We're almost ready to start the pain. So we're going to start back on this congressional hearing that I was listening to earlier, that I started the last stream on. We're going to start it again. I backed it up just a little bit because I couldn't find this bill earlier. Because I covered it before on my channel. I couldn't find it earlier. I had to go back and look for it, and I finally found it. And there's a reason this idiot is mentioning things like high velocity and all this other shit, and it falls into this bill. Miss Misty Wayne, what's happening? Hey, Mr. I understand. Just do what you got to do, chick. Just hang in there. I said, I'm getting everything prepped now, and we're gonna start the pain here in just a second. Tell you what, we'll wait till 6:50, and then we'll get the hearing started back up. That'll give me enough time to play and get my thoughts back right. Well, maybe wrong, but anyway, right for me. Wrong for everything else. see. I just wanted to look through this real quick. It's funny they don't mention fucking 50 or Action Express in this bill. Apparently, they don't know about that one. I had all this written up. I'll have to look back through my notes and stuff to actually pull how this looks in law. Oh yeah, yeah. If you're working at home and having to clock in and out and stuff like that on your phone, yeah, they're definitely monitoring that shit. Um, one, if they're not, they're idiots because they're going to have a bunch of people who aren't doing jack shit, um, that are sitting at home collecting paychecks, sitting there flip flops. But two, it should just be based off your productivity. If you were actually being productive and making the company a profit, then it really shouldn't matter what the hell you're doing, as long as you are showing them a profit. But it is what it is. So I tell you what, let's get this here and crank back up. And I backed it up just a little bit so we could hear Mr. Sheldon Whitehouse, because God knows he's painful to listen to. But he mentions a couple things here. What's up, Vanessa? Yeah, Vanessa, you were in earlier. I backed this up just a little bit to show off a corresponding bill, basically. So let's listen to Mr. Sheldon Whitehouse again. Kurt, what's up, brother?
Into law with very, very broad bipartisan support. So I'm sure amendments could pass quite quickly if you'd be interested in providing some ideas about that. And the last thing I'd be interested in hearing from you about is high velocity ammunition.
So again, he's mentioning high velocity ammunition here because it's part of some stuff that they want to try to pass, even though he has no idea what the fuck high velocity ammunition is. He has no idea what velocity is at all, whatsoever. But apparently, he's been doing the research because he knows that speed defeats body armor. He doesn't quite say it that way, but he gets to it.
We talk a lot about assault rifles, but the speed of the projectile itself is another separate factor. And as I understand it, it's a factor in the ability of your body armor.
The problem is here, Vanessa, is you're looking at a party who wants to stack the Supreme Court with 4 more seats. They want to pick those judges. So even though this last decision came down from the Supreme Court that said that we have the right to carry arms, and they're fighting over right now this whole term for, well, a couple. Sporting usage and in common usage are 2 terms that they're fighting about right now. They're downgrading the number of ARs in the United States right now, trying to say that they're not in common usage because there are over 400 and something million guns, and there's only 20 million ARs. That is a lowball fucking number from the word go. So they're going to try to say that ARs aren't in common usage. So they're trying to argue that point. That was part of the point from this last congressional hearing that a lot of people missed. The other thing is that they are going to try to pack the Supreme Court so that even when they pass some stupid shit, their Supreme Court will uphold it and overturn this last decision, just like this Supreme Court finally overturned Roe versus Wade. You have to realize what these people are doing, and don't put anything past them whatsoever, because they're a bunch of lying sacks of shit.
To withstand the bullet, and it's a factor in the physical destruction wrought by the projectile in the human body when it hits it. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on what harm there is from high velocity ammunition to people in your profession, and any thoughts you have about trying to restrict that particular type of ammunition. And I'll close because it's, I think, impossible not to talk about the dangers to police officers and injuries and fatalities, certainly as a member of Congress, without referencing the heroism and simple, plain, hard, tough work that our Capitol Police did on January 6th, fending off the mob that President Trump sent up here to do damage.
Vanessa, they have no idea what high velocity is. They have no idea what velocity actually means. Like a change in direction, a change in speed from 0 to whatever, 0 to 60, 0 to 400 feet a second. They have no idea what that shit means at all whatsoever. It is a focus tested term that sounds good to people who don't know anything about firearms, which unfortunately is a large part of the United States population.
To the building, and obviously they did a lot of damage to police officers. I think the January 6th Commission, the bipartisan January 6th Commission, has done a very fair job of presenting what that day looked like to the police officers who were here, and for those who were injured that day, and for those who, for whom fatality resulted from that day. It's worth, I think, just expressing.
Now, I didn't catch that earlier. From whom fatality resulted from that day.
And with that, I guess I'm the senior person here, so I'll now turn to Senator Lee, followed by Senator Klobuchar, followed by Senator Cotton, it seems, unless.
Now, the reason he mentions high velocity and he mentions armor piercing goes back to a bill like this, the Protecting Our Communities Act. In the Protecting Our Communities Act, they mention, let's cycle down, yada, yada, armor-piercing concealable weapons. So basically, if you have a weapon that they says is concealable, something like an AR pistol, they want that banned. And they want any cartridge that can be, or any gun that, any cartridge that can be built into said gun, banned. And guess what they mentioned? 450 Bushmaster, 5.56 and 223, 7.62 by 39, 308, 7.62 NATO, 30 carbine, 7.62 by 33, or 300 blackout, 50 BMG. Like any damn thing, 50 BMG is concealable. And don't forget, they get to define what concealable is, and the 5.7. And then they throw in here any other round determined by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to be capable of, when fired by any such weapon or device, penetrating the standard body armor worn by law enforcement officers. Standard body armor worn by law enforcement officers is normally soft plate body armor. Most hunting rounds will penetrate that armor like butter. And again, if you go, I'd have to look back in my videos on when I covered this. I covered this very early on my channel. That's why they're using the terms that they're using. And this will come back. This bill isn't dead, even though this was introduced on introduced on 5/18/2021. This bill isn't dead. This bill is still alive, very much alive, and it will come back around. So Let's get back into here.
The order should change.
Thank you. And thanks to each of you for your service and for being here today to talk to us. I'll never forget some of the emotions I experienced in 2020 when watching one weekend in...
Now, catch two different sides here. Mr. Whitehouse, Sheldon Whitehouse, mentions January 6th as this big insurrection and mentions banning weapons. Mike Lee gets into the absolute riots and shit went on where there were actually police officers killed.
June of that year, as violent protests erupted in Salt Lake City, as they had in so many other cities at that time. I've never seen anything quite like this, not in my home state, not in Salt Lake City. I watched as a mob of violent protesters took a police car, turned it all the way upside down, and then, as I recall, lit the thing on fire. There were dozens of officers injured in those violent riots and protests that weekend. It was concerning. It felt as though it was foreboding something bad, in addition to being an awful thing in and of itself. And the facts as they've played out since then have shown that feeling to be accurate. 2 years later, and our country is in the midst of a really ugly crime spike. Homicide rates in Utah are up 44% compared to just a few years ago in 2019, along with assaults and property crimes and all sorts
peaceful.
of other offenses.
Mostly
attacks on police officers are at their
protests.
highest level that we've seen since 1995. In 2021, there were 73 officers nationwide who were killed in the line of duty. And nearly 1/3 of those, 25 officers, were killed in unprovoked attacks. Now, to give that ugly statistic a terrifying context, only 2 unprovoked attacks against police officers were recorded in 2020. In Utah, more police officers were shot at in 2021 than in any other recorded year, resulting in injury to 8 police officers. In one of those cases, 2 officers were injured when they went simply to check on a man who was lying in the grass near the sheriff's office in Salt Lake City. And as they were doing that, the man opened fire on them. In March of this year, a man ran up behind a police officer as he was on patrol at the Salt Lake City International Airport and sucker punched him. And just last week, a 4-year-old boy shot at police officers from inside a vehicle in Salt Lake City, claiming that he had been encouraged to do precisely that by his father. This is troubling. Mr. Anderson, can you tell us what impact?
Yeah, I said it earlier. I gotta find the video or the story of this 4-year-old shooting at cops. Encouraged by his father. That'll be an interesting video to go through.
Some of the anti-police rhetoric may have had over the last few years, and what impact that rhetoric and these alarming statistics might have in your experience when it comes to officer safety and officer morale?
I think in the incident I was involved in, it had a direct impact. Like I said before, the individual clearly did not like law enforcement. Clearly that day he was trying to accomplish killing an officer. We had so much information, and I won't get into all that as far as things that led up to that we didn't know, that we later found out. And when you go through these types of incidences, it just hits everybody very hard. And I don't know how you would prevent that unnecessarily, but I know that's why we're here.
Sergeant Penny, do you think anti-police rhetoric and violence trickles down into the community? And what impact do you think this has on members of communities throughout our country?
It has a major impact on the community. I'm sorry, Senator. It has a major impact on communities across this country, especially our communities of color. I'm active in the Black community around the country, not just locally in Texas, but I travel the country and try to engage.
Be nice if I muted myself. No, what's up, Fudd? No, I backed it back. We're doing the same hearing that we were listening to earlier. I started it back just a little bit to catch up on some stuff because there was a bill that I wanted to reference during this. And I referenced it a little bit ago. I'll probably reference it again by the time this is over. So, yeah, just hang out, enjoy the pain. What can I say? I'm a sadist.
With the Black community, because I want to build a relationship between the police and the community. And what many of these people have told me was that they never agreed to a defund the police initiative. What happened was you had these politicians that got online and put out their messages about defunding the police, and it just proliferated through social media. But the reality is those communities with people of color were being victimized at a higher rate than anywhere else in this country. And the bottom line is we haven't found
Kurt, that was a big old toad that snake chokes down.
Any way to hold the individuals accountable that have proliferated this message, that have allowed our police to be attacked, and we just have to find a way, Senator, to where we can hold individuals accountable for using rhetoric for and a lot of leadership here in Congress. A lot of leadership here. We have to find a way to hold these people accountable for encouraging the type of acts that's happening right now in our society. Thank you.
So the violence that occurs as a result of anti-police rhetoric very often isn't focused in the gated communities of the wealthy and the well-connected.
Absolutely not. No, it's the communities that are already having problems. I mean, this is where do you think the criminals come from? The criminals are right there alongside the people that they're living with, all the ghettos, the projects in the inner city. What do you think these criminals get out? They get out of prison, they go right back into those communities. Who you think they're victimizing? A lot of these people can't pack up and just and leave the community. That's like the catch-22 with these arguments. We talk about why don't they just leave? Well, a lot of people can't leave. Half of my family is still in the inner city right now. They can't leave. They don't have the resources to up and go. But they're still being victimized by the criminals that are living beside them, that are living in these communities.
Yeah, Kurt, take it easy, brother. Okay, we'll probably catch you after a while. I know you'll probably be on Dark Stream.
So I will say there has to be accountability for rhetoric that's used to incite violence against our police across the country.
Thank you, Sergeant Penny. I see my time has expired.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Lee. Thank you so much for being here. And I was prosecutor for 8 years, ran the biggest office in our state. And I also now chair the Senate Rules Committee. So I've made
that chick has more teeth than a fucking chainsaw.
it my mission to focus on rebuilding our Capitol Police. We're pleased that we have new police chief, that we are still recruiting officers. We're still down, but we've seen improvements in morale. And I've literally, after what happened on January 6th, that we lost officers, from both that day.
Okay, just noticing stupid shit. Is it just me, or does she have the Indian twins and masks behind her?
And from suicide, I have made it my mission to make this place better for them. So many of them injured, so many of them really never going to be the same. And that has been my focus since I've gotten here. I also, I wanted to just clarify a few things. I just heard about defund the police. I'll give you an example of my city of Minneapolis. There was a ballot initiative that was described that way. I opposed it, so did the governor, and it actually was defeated in a liberal city. I think one of the focuses has got to be, as you all know, reforming some of the practices, but at the same time, funding the police. And I guess that's my first question of you, Chief Henninger. You called for an expansion of the COPS program in your opening remarks. I actually lead that bipartisan legislation with Senator Murkowski, as well as Senator Coons, Tillis, Feinstein, and Graham to reauthorize the COPS hiring program. How have you seen the COPS hiring program help local law enforcement to improve training, upgrade technology, and retain experienced officers?
So over the last 30 years, the COPS program has been wonderful to give all size organizations the opportunity to improve their ability to support their communities. From bringing on additional officers to show the elected leaders that there was a need, or from a technology project to get it off the ground and started, it's worked really well to help make us a better profession and professionalize and understand how to be better interacting with the community. So it's been very supportive, and we're really appreciative of the work you're doing to bring that back.
Okay. Oh, Sheriff, you wanted to add something?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Senator, for your support of so many of those kinds of things. I just want to mention in the COPS program, one of the challenges that a lot of the communities have is the match.
Mhm.
So our brothers and sisters in fire service, most of their grants, their personnel grants, don't have a match. But when you have, especially an urban community or a community that's struggling with their budgets, they may want the position, but the match becomes a prohibitor. So anything that could be done on that front would be certainly helpful. I know one of my communities that we police under contract is constantly budget struggle. And so the match impediment that exists in law enforcement, especially for personnel and cops, would be something that would be
I know I
appreciated.
just encountered this with one of our mayors and worked with the Justice Department on it. We found a way, but I would like to improve that. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Commissioner Harrison, you testified that the availability of illegal guns is a direct factor in the spike in gun violence. I agree. Yesterday, I introduced a bill with Senator Peters of Michigan and 9 other colleagues to require federal and state law enforcement to crack down on devices that can turn semi-automatic guns into fully automatic weapons. These devices, as you probably know, can be purchased from foreign manufacturers, as we talk about the internet, for under $20 and can be installed in under a minute. Can you talk about the challenge law enforcement faces when responding to gun violence incidents that involve weapons that can fire automatically, and what you think of this proposal?
Well, I think that's a great proposal. We've seen an increase in weapons.
Fuck if I remember to unmute myself. Yeah, Agorizer, you know, if I share or start up a share the pain stream, I mean it's painful. It's really not a joke. Bacon caught onto that quick. He actually named these streams. Yeah, it's and now they're talking about switches, and they start to mention some stuff about 3D printing, although this asshat calls it laser printing. If I could laser print 3D switches, that would be amazing. I'd like to do it.
That can be fired automatically, not just from people who can buy the devices and put them in the weapon, but can actually make them off laser printers fairly quickly and put them into assault rifles and into handguns. And so we have seen an increase in polymer 80s or ghost guns or privately made firearms. We're seeing more of an increase in that than we're seeing in your traditional firearms in the city of Baltimore. And I think that's a trend that we're seeing around the country as well. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to stop the number of shootings, because with those fully automatic weapons, perpetrators are shooting and striking multiple victims, as you heard in the opening statement. While they may only intend to shoot one person, they're shooting multiple.
Does that not tell you a couple things? One, gangsters can't shoot, and 2, gun control's bullshit because criminals are gonna crime. What's up, Mike?
Multiple people. And so we have had an increase in the number of shootings where we had 3 or 4 or 5 people shot when only one person was the intended target, simply because the weapon most likely was an automatic weapon rather than a semi-automatic weapon. So it's not just for my city, but I think all of us are seeing increasing challenges with that specific issue. So we need to find a way to be able to eliminate the purchase of those devices and the creation of those devices, and have strict penalties and consequences for those who are caught with it.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I appreciate that. And I think part of this is not.
Okay, let's see. Let's do this real quick. No, you want to know what the issue is? When you shoot and you don't use your sights and you hold a gun like this. This is a frame. This isn't a firearm, YouTube. When you hold your gun like this and don't use your sights, you don't hit what you're aiming at. It's accuracy through volume of fire. Fucking numbnuts. Oh shit. How do I get back to where I was at? There we are. Hold on. Let's see. I'm gonna make myself big. Nah, we'll make myself small. I'm a small dude.
Just responding to things from the past, but looking to what's right in front of us, which is things like this, which you guys have to do every day in your jobs. I just want to, and Chief Henninger, I'm sorry about the loss of your partner to gun violence. It's actually what's motivated me for doing a lot of things that I've worked on, including the closing the boyfriend loophole that we recently did in the bipartisan agreement that Senator Cornyn and Senator Murphy and Tillis and Sinema and many others put together. The case I most remember of an officer being killed was a guy in Lake City who responded to a domestic violence case. Young woman who called in, boyfriend, completely having mental health issues, a veteran actually, and the officer.
Yeah, Mike, dude, you're 100% right. It's all about control. That's the only thing this is about is control. That's the only thing gun control has ever been about is the control, not the gun, not safety. And you notice, if you guys are old enough, you notice when this stopped being gun control and started becoming common sense gun safety. Right around the time global warming became climate change and all the other words that they just completely change. Yeah, this most everything they're doing is only going to affect law-abiding people. You, me, Ron Wayne, Agorize, any of us. That's the people this is going to affect, not the people committing the crimes.
Came to the door and he had his own bulletproof vest. You've talked about protection, but the guy shot him in the head. And I went to that funeral, and at that funeral was in the church. That dad who was killed, the cop, had been there just a few weeks before for the nativity play with his two little boys that were in it. And there was a little baby as well. And that mom walked down the aisle, that same church where her husband had been sitting in the front row watching the nativity play with the little girl with a blue dress with stars on it and with those two little boys by her side. And we got to remember that this violence, so many times it's officers who are on the front end of it, and that gets forgotten. And that was part of my motivation in working on the boyfriend loophole, only because I think officers know some of the.
Now, boyfriend loophole. She talks about it like there's a time where, say, you and your girlfriend are dating before you get married, and you can beat her ass like she owes you money every single day, and you can't get charged with domestic violence. It's a fucking lie. And old Amy Klobuchar, I could bite through 2x4s like the fucking, what was his name? Jaws off of fucking the early 007 movies. People actually believe this woman.
Most dangerous scene to get called to can be this domestic violence scene. So I just want to thank you for your service. I continue being from the state where the tragic murder of George Floyd occurred, devoted to reform, but at the same time believing that we can invest in our law enforcement and get that respect that you deserve, and move forward together. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing. And I think I was going to turn over to Senator Cotton, but someone just passed me a note. It was Senator Blackburn. Is that right? Okay, so it wasn't a choice. It was the order. Senator Blackburn, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to each of you for being.
Now, as always, look at how many empty seats are in this hearing. These people show up to do their questioning, get their sound bite, and then they're on to something else. These are not serious people trying to do what's best for the American people. Yeah, Adia. Yeah, she's happy. She's getting her sound bite. And that's all this is about. That's all these hearings are about.
Here today, we are so grateful for your taking the time and being here to talk with us. I know Senator Tillis talked some on the respect issue, and Senator Klobuchar just brought up the issue of respect. And I think that when you look at some of these issues between communities and police, that's of concern. But then the dramatic decline in trust between police and the district attorneys who choose not to prosecute some of these crimes, cases of illegal possession of firearms, domestic violence, resisting arrest, theft. And they have a tendency to promote these bail reform measures. And Chief Novales, if I could come to you on this, I know Chicago has had as many as 100 alleged murderers released on mere home monitoring. That is shocking to me. And also in Chicago, I was looking at some of your stats. Police made a...
Mike, have you listened to half the shit I say? If I was worried about getting freaking canceled, I wouldn't have a channel.
Police made arrests in only 12% of the criminal incidences in 2021, which is the lowest rate since 2001. And that was when the data was first released. The FOP has written your DA, Kim Foxx, noting a deep...
Yeah, FUD, man. Ron's been putting out some good shit, man. The single actions he's been shooting, the Glock video he just did. Yeah, dude, he's been rolling it. So yeah, man, he's a good sub for sure.
Mistrust between Chicago police officers and the DA's office, also stating, and I'm quoting, "We no longer believe that your office will treat our members fairly, either in the arrests they make or when they are victims of crime." So you're a 21-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what are you doing and why are you not loudly calling for a change in prosecutors who are pushing this decriminalization, decarceration, depolicing efforts and rhetoric?
Well, ma'am,
Ron, I just made you a moderator. Post your channel. Most of the guys in here, or some of the guys in here, are probably already subbed to you, but go ahead and post your channel. That way, if someone in here isn't subbed to you, or someone watches this shit later, maybe they'll see your channel.
respectfully,
And give me a sec. I'll be right back.
do the best that we can. We work with our Cook County State's attorneys to put the best cases forward and to achieve the desired result.
All right, and voluntary resignations, that has been an issue with your department. I know it's an issue with large police departments around the country. They have increased by nearly 300%. And we've recently seen the entire police force resign in towns in Colorado, North Carolina, Georgia, Missouri. Fewer police officers mean increased risk for the remaining officers. So what are you and your leadership doing to turn the tide on this tumultuous state that you're seeing in police departments?
Well, one of the things we've done in the Chicago Police Department is we put up a recruitment team, something that we didn't have before, right? We understand that the
What
environment.
kind of results is that seeing?
So we have seen an increase in the number of officers applying for our
Right.
positions. For example, we have 400 currently new recruits in the
Let
academy.
me move on. Mr. Penny, I see you shaking your head. I know you want to respond to that. So quickly, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Senator. The unfortunate reality is that this whole defund the police, the legitimacy of our officers has led to officers not even wanting to go into the profession. And the bottom line is you have a lot of these DAs that are releasing these criminals back onto the streets. The officers they've already said they're tired of doing this double work over and over again. And let's put this in context. We want to talk about the real beast in the room. We're talking about an 85% recidivism rate of violent felons that come out of prison. They come out, and within 5 years, they're going right back for similar crimes. So we have to figure out how to close this loophole to stop our.
So let me interrupt
Absolutely.
you right there. Closing that loophole. Goes to that issue of.
And I know what dude's trying to say, but there is no loophole there. People get sent to prison. People do their time in prison. People get out of prison. People have a choice what to do once they get out of prison. They can either choose to go back to the life that put them in prison, or they can make a change and not go back to doing that same thing. Some people go to prison for stupid ass mistakes. Trust me. I know it. Some people go to prison because they were doing very evil things. They went to prison, they get out, they go back to doing very evil things. Now, does our prison system really need to be reformed? In a lot of ways, it does. Absolutely, it does. Would you do better by stopping people from going to prison in the first place by improving people's situations before they find themselves going to prison? That would be the way to do it. This is where we get into the driver of a lot of crime is poverty and drugs. Not to mention broken families, single parent homes, or in some cases, fucking no parent homes because no parent is taking care of the kids.
Respect and the tearing down of respect and the ability of law enforcement to do their job, correct?
Absolutely, it does.
Mr. Harrison, I want to come to you. Issue of qualified, let's see, Sheriff, I want to come to you on the issue of qualified immunity, Sheriff Bouchard. Talk to me about this and what are the effects, positive and negative, from this push to strip qualified immunity from our law enforcement officers?
Thank you, Senator. The effect is terrible on the morale. They're already feeling very much unsupported on so many levels. And when you talk about qualified immunity, people will say, well, they shouldn't have immunity from being held accountable. And I answer, I agree. They don't have immunity. They have qualified immunity, meaning if they followed the Constitution, the laws of the state, the policies and procedure of our agency, and it's within clearly established practices, principles, and rights, then they get immunity. So if we have an incident, let's say where...
Okay, this is where I notice stupid shit, and this is a notice a stupid shit deal. Does this dude have fucking goblin ears to the rest of you guys? Pay attention to his entire ear. The dude has goblin ears. Just noticing things.
A deputy is pursuing a suspect and he falls through a plate glass window. Oftentimes you'll see around the country, they sue the officer for that injury, even though they were committing a crime and fleeing from the police. Qualified immunity gets to court and said, no, this wasn't the officer's fault. The officer was doing their job. Case is dismissed. Without that, a lot of our officers and deputies are saying, why would I do this job? I'm willing to risk my life, but I'm not willing to risk my family's home and future, even when I do the job according to policy, procedure, law, and the Constitution.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having.
Dude, ADX, yeah, man. If you're just getting into firearms, watching people like Ron, and a lot of others that you'll see in the chats, dude. Yeah, there's a wide variety, and they will expose you to just about everything. I'm serious, man. It's the community, and I see you in the chats with Dark, with John, with me, with Ron. I mean, yeah, man, if you're just getting into firearms, dude, you are in a good fucking spot to get exposed to a lot of stuff. And just find what works for you, man, and roll it. And don't let anybody talk you out of it. That's one of the big things. You'll hear a lot of douchebags talking about this is the best thing, that's the best thing. You got to have this, you got to have that. If you're just getting into them, dude, find what works for you and work with it. And then if you change your mind later on it, that's cool. Until I finish out this P80 Glock 19 that I'm carrying now, I carried a Taurus G2C. I carried it for the last couple of years. It just worked. And honestly, if I drill you with it, no one's going to dig the bullet out and go, you fired that from a G2C. It didn't hurt me. No, it's going to hurt just as much as it was fired from anything else. But yeah, man, just freaking rock on with it, brother.
This hearing, and my thanks to all of you professionals who've dedicated your life to law enforcement, each of you.
Ron Wayne, you got that right, man. Especially where ADX is hanging out. Dark's channel, this channel, hanging out, your stuff. Yeah. Dude, he's in a good fucking spot because none of us are the dickheads that are going to try to pull a bunch of shit on you. None of us are going to rep one thing versus the other because we're getting paid for it or anything like that. We're very honest about what we do. Just like videos you see me do, you're going to see every mistake I make. I shoot shit raw. The only time I cut something out of a video, if it's so fucking boring to me that I'm ready to slit my own throat, that's when you'll see me trim something out. But other than that, even my shooting videos, you're going to see my fat ass out there shooting it raw. Yeah. Crump is another good one. Dark, freaking Sabar Prince. God, I'd have to go through the list of the people that I watch. There's another dude, if you're like me and you're kind of nerdy on law shit, if you don't follow the 3 Boxes Diner, you should be following him. He's another freaking good one. That guy is he's an actual lawyer, member of the Supreme Court Bar Association. I just found him a few months ago. And he's just freaking killer on the stuff he does. Me, I'm an idiot. I like playing with guns. I like building guns. If you got questions about like something AR or anything like that, and I'm learning, man. I'm doing SDI stuff right now, Sonoran Desert Institute for actually gunsmithing. And you'll see me on like a couple of videos ago where I figured some stuff out about one of my P80 builds. And I'm very honest with it. I'm figuring this shit out. But yeah, dude, just freaking hang out. And if you get into positions, ADX, if you get into a position where you're hearing a bunch of hate get thrown from one person to another, I would say be very careful about that. There are times where some hate gets thrown and it is very well warranted. And there's time where hate gets thrown just because people like drama. I don't like drama. If you see me throwing hate at somebody, it's pretty well freaking warranted. And I will show my work as to why I'm throwing that much hate at somebody. All right, let's get back to listening to fucking Sylvester the goddamn cat.
I was a federal prosecutor for 4.5 years as the
And I know that's giving Sylvester a bad name, but this guy sounds like he's got a perpetual phallic object in his mouth. This is Cindy Blumenthal, by the way.
U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, and then served as our state's Attorney General for 20 years. So I've come to admire the men and women who do your job on the front lines in law enforcement. Last thing in the world we want to do is delegitimize our police or defund them. In fact,
Now, again, these are people of the Democrat Party. These are people who have spent the last, well, longer than that, but especially the last 2 years, talking about defunding the police. Police are evil. Police are killing black people like they're just free, and bullets don't cost anything. And now he's sitting here praising police, but the reason he's doing it is because he wants to use the police to push their anti-gun bills. Much like dead children, they only like police when they can use them to push their agenda.
advocated that we give them more resources for the needs that they have in doing their jobs and focus their responsibilities so they can do what they do best, which is protect us from the risks and dangers of criminals. And we need to protect our police from the threats to them that come from firearms. In fact, firearms that in many respects may make criminals in possession of stronger firepower than our police do. One of the areas that's particularly concerned me are ghost guns. I'm very proud of the Bipartisan Safe Communities Act that I and others here helped to lead in the Senate that we recently passed. It's a modest step, but it opens the door to do more in terms of gun violence prevention. I'm hoping that we can do more on assault weapons and safe storage and high capacity magazines and on ghost guns. As you know, these are firearms that under current law are not required to be serialized. They're not required to be sold by sellers who are licensed. They're not required to be sold with background checks.
That's because they are not firearms until you actually finish them and turn them into firearms. You slobbering moron. I am so close to just snapping out. Yeah, Ron. Ooh, scary. Yeah, I got one right here, man. I keep having to hold him down. He's trying to run through the walls and shit. I can't stop him. I'm going to have to call Ghostbusters before too long. Maybe they'll show up with their freaking, what they call the power packs they use. And, you know, we don't cross the streams, and maybe Slimer will come and he'll slime somebody. Yeah, dude, none of these bands have stopped a single thing, and they're not going to because, yeah, Proton Pack. That's exactly it. Ron Wayne, you got it. Attack fun. Bet he got his ass whipped in school. I bet he got his ass whipped in school a lot. There was probably a pretty much go whip Sydney's ass or Richard's ass day every other week in school for this guy. Wasn't he the one throwing his medals from Vietnam over the fence. No, that was John Kerry. No, this guy claimed to be a Vietnam veteran and then figured out he'd never stepped foot in country. I think that was this dude. So obviously we know he's an honest guy, right?
And so they are very difficult to trace at crime scenes. And all it takes is a few $100s and a do-it-yourself gun-making kit, often on kitchen tables, to make them. So in Connecticut, this is one of the major emerging threats to our police, ghost guns. We're finding more and more of them, and increasing numbers
Well,
of
they're right. There you go,
use
check
in
on.
crimes. Commissioner
Well,
Harrison, you testified
we
before
got
the
the
subcommittee on the Constitution, which I chair,
Oh, I see one of them. Two of them.
about the threats that communities across
All right,
the
he
United
better be in
States
there.
face because of ghost guns. You said ghost guns, and I'm quoting, ghost guns add a new level of danger
No more.
to the work that you do. And I know
Why you gotta come and turn the
Chief
light on?
Henninger, in your capacity
unplug
in
my blue light.
2018 at the International Association of Chiefs of Police, a resolution was
Wife's home.
adopted strongly supporting measures
Yeah.
dealing with the need to stop
Where's
ghost
Bubba?
guns.
It's on the
A
couch.
general question to all of you. Is there anybody here who feels ghost guns are not a
Bubba's
threat
never
and
crouching.
don't need to be addressed? Would you all agree that ghost guns are
There
an
should be
increasing
3.
threat on our streets
starting
and
to
our
figure out how to
communities?
get
If
up.
anybody disagrees,
And yeah, I haven't shot a
Please
video
say
about it, guys, but yeah, I have 3 mice now.
record should record that you are in agreement. And I would invite any of you who have comments on ghost guns now, please, to make them, beginning whatever order that you'd like to comment.
Thank you, Senator. Certainly in my jurisdiction, that is an increasing threat. We are seeing more and more privately made firearms or termed ghost guns being recovered from the streets of Baltimore by both perpetrators and victims. And we have seen
Yeah, hold on. Let me do this. The wife is showing off one of the 3 mice that I now have
This is Mr. Jingles. He's got a hole in his ear.
because I bought mice for my snake to eat, and apparently my snake does not eat mice, and he is a toad addict and won't eat anything but toads.
2 of them are named Marshmallow.
Yeah, the other one's probably been kicking his ass.
Marshmallow Jr.
That's Mr. Jingles.
Marshmallow
So-
Jr.
I done tamed me that mouse.
So yeah, this guy talking about ghost guns, although they make no distinction whatsoever about a gun that was made privately without a serial number and a gun that had its serial number removed. Because let's be honest, I can take a firearm with a serial number and I can scratch that serial number off with a rock, and it takes no technical knowledge whatsoever. If you build a ghost gun, you might have to do what I did with the last couple, and you actually might have to figure out what is making that gun malfunction and then troubleshoot it and then fix said malfunction. These people act like you hit print on a printer and all of a sudden a fully functional MG42 jumps out of your printer, and that's not the way this shit works.
You want to talk about the gun I worked on today?
No.
quite an increase in numbers in juveniles in possession of these as young as 13 years old. And that is increasingly troublesome because not only can we not trace those firearms, but they're being purchased.
Yeah, Ron Wayne. Yeah, this hearing was today. It was at, I don't know, I think it might have started at 10 o'clock today. I didn't hear about it till, I don't know, it was over. So probably 1 something or 2 when I actually looked and saw what was going on, and then decided this was going to be my afternoon or my evening.
By minors or given to minors by someone who did purchase them and assemble them. And then those guns are being used against other citizens. And if we cannot trace them, then it makes it extremely hard when we find the perpetrator to put a quality case together,
Fixing what?
putting the gun in the hand of the perpetrator, unless there's
Oh, a
DNA or
duffel
some
bag?
other type
Okay.
of evidence. But the gun itself becomes very problematic, not only for the person who pulled the trigger, but tracing it back to its origin and how it inevitably wound up into the hands of the killer, especially a minor child. We're seeing that more and more in Baltimore City.
Thank you. I would just add that the fact that you can, in 45 minutes with a laser printer, make a trigger system that will make any handgun or rifle into an automatic weapon, that we would require you to get a federal firearms permit from the ATF to possess otherwise, is very, very concerning.
Good condition.
I don't know anybody printing Glock switches, but I would be highly surprised if you can print one in 30 minutes. That's a pretty quick print speed for, I don't know, anything.
Thank you all for being here today. I think this point of agreement among everyone here is very significant, and I think should help shape our next efforts on protecting our police and enabling them to better protect ourselves. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal, Senator from Arkansas.
Gentlemen, thank you all for being here today, and thank you for your service to our nation, to our communities. You know, when you see troops walking through the airport, they always get thanked for their service. Sometimes people buy them a sandwich or a beer. I wish that all of you and all of the men and women in blue that you represent had the same treatment always. In some ways, I think you face greater dangers. You know, it sure is dangerous when we send troops into harm's way, as we have so many times over the last 20 years. But at least they get to come home. And when they get home, then they can hang up their armor and they put their rifles in the lockers and not have to worry about being killed the next day the way they had for the previous 365 days. But for law enforcement, you never get that break. Every night when you come home, you know you got to go out.
Because I want everybody to see what I have to deal with.
You know that next day may be the day.
They see what I have to deal with on a daily.
Oh, yeah, they
take your life.
They think you're a
I
saint.
recommend all of you, whatever your views on any of the issues we discuss or your politics, and all the men and women that you
Pretty
represent
much.
in blue all around the country, for serving our nation and serving our communities to keep us
They
all
would be
safe.
wrong, wouldn't they?
I talk with law enforcement
Depends on the
officers a
day.
lot when I'm around the state of Arkansas, or when I'm traveling through airports and other places. And I talk to them a lot about recruiting and retention, which you've just touched on some this morning. I want to relay a particularly sad story.
You're
about an
wrong.
officer in Chicago's O'Hare Airport, who I talked to about a year ago. And police, like the military, since I'm making the comparison, oftentimes is a family business. A lot of folks are multi-generational police in their families.
Me, except for my mom,
And this
right?
officer, who
Yeah,
was just a
me
year or
is too.
two away from retiring,
You lost
said
my
that
brain for a second.
he had a son
Oh,
who had
and
been
by the
in
way,
police for 5 years.
There's a pile
And
of
his son
cat puke
came to him one day,
right out there.
and
that
he
you
could
can
tell
deal
the
with.
son was
Okay.
a bit embarrassed,
God,
sheepish,
maybe I have
didn't know how to start the conversation. He told me I didn't know what he wanted to discuss. Was he telling me that he was broke and needed money? Was he getting a divorce from his
I've
wife?
already cleaned up two
What was it that was
houses.
causing him to hold back in this conversation? And finally, his son told him, Dad, I'm going to turn in the badge. I can't do it anymore. I just can't be police like you have been for the next.
Okay. Who that has been paying attention for, I don't know, the last 2 years especially, who would want to be a cop in today's era, I should say. Area. Why? Her daughter said area. Yeah. Who would want to be a cop these days? With everything going on, who would want to be one?
I'd do it.
Next 25 years of my life. And this officer, who again had dedicated almost 30 years of his life to policing Chicago streets, and who had proudly watched as his son was
You can
sworn
get
in
hamburger buns?
5 years earlier,
One minute. Let me kill.
said that he told his son, I don't blame you, son. If I was your age, I don't think I could do it either. I think that's a very sad commentary.
Yeah, Clint, I think tomorrow is the next hearing on the assault weapons ban. And I know a lot of people say, oh, it will never pass, but I'm telling you right now, don't put anything past these people. I fully expect them to do away with the filibuster before the elections in November, push through packing the Supreme Court, and then push through this assault weapons ban. I fully expect it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But just be ready in case it happens.
You're crazy.
Yeah, well, I am crazy. I married you.
For the state of respect for law enforcement in our communities, that lifelong police whose son was police wouldn't recommend his son make it a career. So I just want to ask you, if an 18 to 25-year-old comes to you and says, should I be police? Should I dedicate my life to police the way all of you have? What would you tell them and why? Sheriff Bouchard, you want to start?
Move.
No.
Thank you, Senator. Well, you're spot on. Surveys a decade ago and continuously for many years used to say that the average officer was asked, would you suggest this as a career to friends, family, and your children? And it was universally super high, 80, 85%, and now it's reversed. So I don't disagree. I would tell the same thing. In fact, I told my kids, I love my country, I love my community, but I don't want any cops or military because it's such a challenge for them these days, and I end up with both.
Dude, ADX, your son thinking about being a cop, I wouldn't recommend it right now. Not at all. I love the military. Absolutely love them. I grew up an Army brat. I grew up as a son of a Vietnam vet, someone who served the best years of their lives in the military, and I love the military. I love the veterans that I work with on a daily basis. Would I recommend anybody going into law enforcement or the military right now? No. And that breaks my heart. And that's not a joke. It really does. Would I recommend it? No. Not right now. Give it a couple of years. See if anything changes. And then go.
Because they said they follow me, not necessarily listen to me. So that's exactly the case, because it's such a challenge on so many levels to have your life on the line, but not be assured that you're going to have the support of around the country, and I'll speak generically for the major counties, to have the support of a prosecutor, to have the support of the community, to have support of the system.
Because
As you go through so many things, what they experience, how they're treated afterwards, how they're supported afterwards, with their mental health.
You just want to burn gas in my truck and not yours.
And then compound it with the changing affairs of compensation. Many people used to get into police work, not for the great hours, because they're terrible, not for the great pay, because it's not. But they knew at the end of the day they'd have a pension and they'd have a retirement. And now that's gone. We don't have pensions and we don't have medical and retirement. So they began to analyze this as a younger person: no medical, no pensions, terrible hours, terrible pay, and the disrespect that they're seeing across the nation. Why should I do that? And it's hard for us to give an answer. I love it. In fact, I recruited 3 people today. So far, I got all no's. Even the Uber driver told me no on the way here. But I believe in it. As it said, we believe this is a calling, not a job. But it's hard to translate that into when people are job searching, not calling searching.
Didn't take much.
Senator, I think it's an excellent question. And from my perspective, this is an opportunity for people who want to make a difference in their communities, and particularly people of color. This is where the narrative, the negative narrative, has been really problematic. If you're somebody who wants to make a difference in your community and the leaders in your community are saying the police are bad, it's really hard to overcome. And so, but we need people who want to do this work, because it is a calling and it is an opportunity to make a difference in your community, and every officer is here. Clearly, we have bad apples like every other profession, but this is an opportunity to make a difference in our communities, and we need those people to do that.
Unfortunately, my time has expired. I'd love to hear all 4 of the other witnesses' answers, but I want to defer to the chairman and other senators. But thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank each of the witnesses for being here today. Each of you put your lives on the line to keep us safe. And I view a very important part of my job as having your backs. It's tough right now to be a cop. I try to make a point with every police officer I see in Texas and across the country to thank every officer. The discussion Senator Cotton was just having, I hear that from young officers all the time, that the rhetoric, the demonization of police officers has a real consequence. We're in the grips of nothing short of a war on police. According to FBI data, 73 police officers were feloniously killed in 2021, a nearly 60% increase from 2020. And sadly, this trend has continued throughout 2022. As of June 30th, 178 officers were shot in the line.
Yeah. Fudd, that would be serious advice. If he wants to be a police officer, stay out of democratically controlled cities. That would be, if he absolutely wanted to be a police officer and he couldn't stand it and he had to be one, yeah, stay out of democratically controlled cities. They see you, Mark. Yeah, that would be the best advice I could possibly give them, or in this case, Tactical Fudd could give them. Go.
No more mouse.
Go.
No more mouse.
Of duty, 33 of whom were killed. But it's not just these shocking numbers, it's the way these shootings have come about. These aren't solely officers shot while intervening in a robbery or investigating a domestic disturbance, but more and more, we're seeing an increase in ambush-style attacks, where the shooting or killing of an officer is not incidental to some other crime, but rather it's the primary objective. It's the primary purpose of the crime. In 2021, there were 133 officers shot in 107 separate ambush-style attacks. And this increase in violence is fueled by dangerous and irresponsible rhetoric, including, sadly, by a number of members of Congress, who, whenever there is an officer-involved shooting, immediately move to demonize the cop, immediately move to blame the police officer without knowing the facts, without knowing what happened. It's always the officer. The incredibly reckless push to abolish the police that is driven by the left wing of the Democratic Party, I believe has done enormous damage. And President Biden nominated not one, but two of the leading advocates of abolishing the police to be senior officials at the U.S. Department of Justice, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark. For both of them, they had repeatedly, explicitly, vigorously argued for defunding or abolishing the police. And every single Democratic senator voted to confirm both of them. So Democrat politicians in an election season say they don't support defunding the police, but when given a chance to decide, should one of the leading advocates of defunding the police be the number 3 person at the Department of Justice, 100% of Senate Democrats said, A-OK with me. Sergeant Penny, share for this committee what the effect of the rhetoric directed at police officers has been to the men and women in the field, to the men and women risking their lives to keep us safe.
Monkey.
It's been demoralizing for our officers in the field. The officers that's trying to work hard to keep us safe. We just got to go back to the July 7, 2016 shooting attack and look at how the rise of anti-police sentiment was being used to incite violence against police. That actually radicalized an individual to come into downtown Dallas to shoot multiple people and kill 5 police officers. And those of you that have never seen a shooting before,
we talked about that last
it's
night.
even worse to imagine the carnage that happened on that day. To see the officers coming into the hospital and being wheeled in over and over again, one after the other. And Senator, you were there. America needs to understand that these are real lives. Officers are people too. They're here to do a difficult job and they just want to go home to their families. But we cannot allow this irresponsible rhetoric that's being used to proliferate radical messages online to incite violence against police, because individuals are taking up arms and actually carrying out those attacks. So I encourage everyone, Senator, to be responsible, especially our leaders for this country. Be responsible in what they're putting out online, because it's endangering our lives. Thank you.
Well, Sergeant Petty, that is powerful, and I agree with you. You're right. I was at the funeral for the 5 police officers in Dallas. It was horrific. In that instance, the gunman told police negotiators, quote, he was upset about Black Lives Matter, and, quote, he was upset about the recent police shootings, and that he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. That vicious rhetoric, the false lies. We had a Biden judicial nominee testify, sitting at that table you're at, that police officers shoot unarmed black men in America every single week. It's a flat out lie. It's completely false. And yet the Senate Judiciary Committee was the vehicle for spreading that lie. It's harmful. It's harmful when politicians throw gas on the fire, and it's particularly harmful when the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, bails out of jail violent Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters siding with the criminals instead of the cops. Sheriff Bouchard, what does that do to the men and women of blue that are keeping us safe?
Well, thank you, Senator. In many ways, as was said, it demoralizes when you see people that have attacked police or have hurt.
Yeah, Mike, we've said it on this. I've said it on this channel. I've said it on other channels. Other people have said it. A lot of these people are locusts. They completely destroy the places they live, and they go to other places and vote the same way and destroy those places. So, yeah, we don't want them. If you're going to vote for these policies, go ahead and live in California or New York. And stay there. Live with your choices.
Police get out on little or no bail. And I have often likened it to the similarity when our Vietnam vets came home, they were spit on and they were demonized. And they were men and women that were going to do a tough job that they were asked to do and then demonized for doing it. I think we pledged as a society, we're not going to let that happen to our veterans again. Amen. So happy that happened. We're in the same place right now with police, and we're letting history repeat itself. We're letting good men and women that are out there doing a tough job get demonized and demoralized.
Thank you.
Look, I will argue with that statement a little bit here. One of the arguments that I use, or one of the arguments I will bring up is your officers enforce mask mandates on people. Put people in handcuffs over masks. Something that is absolutely outside the purview of local law enforcement. So what we've ended up with is we end up with demonizing law enforcement to the point where you only end up with shitheads that are wearing badges. And I have zero respect for those people.
Thank you very much. I have no further requests for questions. I'd like to make a few comments for the record. The Senate Judiciary Committee has passed 5 bipartisan bills. We're trying to keep this as bipartisan as possible. I know at moments it didn't sound like it, but we're trying to keep this as bipartisan as possible. We passed 5 bipartisan bills out of committee that provide resources and funding to enhance officer recruitment and retention and address mental health challenges. The Invest to Protect Act by Senators Cortez Masto and Grassley, dedicating $250 million of COPS grants funding for 5 years to support smaller law enforcement agencies. The Fighting Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Act of 2022, Senator Coons of Delaware and Senator Grassley, directing the Attorney General to develop programs to treat, prevent job-related post-traumatic stress disorder. Strong Communities Act, Senators Peters and Cornyn providing COPS grants for local law enforcement recruits to attend law enforcement training. The Law Enforcement De-Escalation Training Act, Cornyn and Whitehouse. Public Safety Officer Support Act, Duckworth and Cornyn. The point I'm trying to make to you is, despite some who would like to turn this into a partisan fight, there is strong bipartisan support, as there should be, for the men and women in law enforcement. This is not a partisan issue from this committee's point of view. As when Senator Grassley asked me for this hearing, I did not object to it. It was within my control. He's my friend and I trust him, and he makes a very valuable contribution on his side of the aisle as I try to make on mine. You've seen several of the members of the committee raise a question about appointments by the Biden administration. One, Vanita Gupta. She comes up at every hearing from the other side of the table. I want you to know that Vanita Gupta.
Okay. While he's going through appointments, understand, guys, that the Democrats have appointed hundreds, and I mean hundreds, that is not an understatement, of judges to district courts and federal courts.
Yum.
All these people you think will uphold the Bruin decision from the Supreme Court, these people are not going to. I can, maybe one of these days I will do a video on the number of judges that they have actually appointed. But in the first year of the Biden administration, they appointed more judges to the courts than Trump did in 4 years. These are all judges that are going to make decisions on challenges to, I don't know, things like assault weapons bans, things like magazine bans. Quit. They're going to make decisions in cases where someone is caught with a frame or receiver and they get charged with having a firearm. All of these things are going to have to go through years of litigation. And if they pack the Supreme Court like they want to, the Supreme Court is going to uphold those decisions. Democrats don't think short term. They think long term. Republicans are the idiots who think short term.
His position at the Department of Justice was supported by the Fraternal Order of Police, National Sheriff's Association, Major Cities Chiefs, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Does this sound like someone who's...
And every organization he just mentioned are completely anti-gun, completely anti-liberty, completely anti-citizen defending themselves. They support every anti-gun politician. They support every anti-gun decision that are made by the courts. These are people that will lock you up, not because you committed a crime where you have a victim there, but because you, I don't know, had a gun without a serial number, even though they don't understand that gun was privately made and doesn't have to have a serial number. Those are the organizations that he mentions.
An enemy of the police. The other woman, Kristen Clark, in the Civil Rights section, supported by the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Major Cities Chiefs, Noble, NAPO, and many more. So there's always a little bit more to the story than you just might hear in the testimony here. But I want to thank you all. I can't thank you enough for what you've done with your lives and what you've really decided to do to protect others.
It's got a big old toad that just ate. Really chilling out.
Say enough for. But thanks for coming today.
How do you see my
usually
video?
this testimony is reserved for Police Week.
Oh, okay.
There's so much controversy and so many comments that have been made today that are timely as of now and will continue to be. This, as far as I'm concerned, from the committee's point of view, is a year-round assignment. It's not 1 week each year. It's a year-round assignment. I want to particularly thank Ms. French for coming. I asked her to, and she was kind enough to come so we could pay honor and tribute to your wonderful daughter. And to the others.
So we could stand on your daughter's
thank
body.
you from the Chicago side of things, and all of you. Officer Anderson, I can could tell how much this means to you personally. Commissioner Harrison, thank you too. You've been on the firing line, literally, for all of your professional life. Sergeant Penny as well, thank you again. And Chief Henninger, when you told the story of your own personal experience with your partner, it really is something I'll remember. Sheriff Bouchard, you've had an amazing career, both in elective office and appointive office. Your list of accomplishments are too many pages. You're going to have to condense it into a smaller group. But thank you all for coming. You may get a few questions for the record. Doubtful, possible if you receive them, if you can answer in a timely finish.
What's up, Corn Pop?
Timetable that works with you, I should say. We mostly appreciate that too. So thank you very much. And this meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee will stand adjourned.
All right, so this one's over. Thank God, because I don't know how much more I can take. And I'm gonna chill out for a few, and then we'll hit up. I'll probably see most of you guys in Dark's chat later for DLD. There's a couple other streams that just crank up in the last couple of minutes. I think Locked and Loaded Latina started up. You might see me in there. But I'm going to end this one. So just realize, guys, that these Supreme Court decisions in the last little while, whether it was a Bruen decision or anything like that, all they have done is fired up people like Dick Durbin and others to where they're just going to shred the rule book. They don't care about those rules. They don't care about your freedom. They're just going to keep rolling on with what they want to do. And if they do what I think they're going to do and go ahead and pack the Supreme Court and do away with the filibuster, or filibuster then the Supreme Court, then the Bruen decision is not going to matter for decades. I hope they don't do it. I believe they will. And I could be wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. In cases like this, I hate being right. But just be ready for this stuff. So you perps be cool. Keep that thing on you at all times. Even if you got to pass one of the little signs that says you shouldn't have this here, keep on trucking. And I'm out. You guys be cool. Love you. Mean it. Later, guys. Y'all take it easy. We'll see you in some chats in a little bit.